We're back again with more IGN Live at E3 2019. Phoenix Point is a turn-based strategy game set in a future plagued by giant Lovecraftian monsters from outer space, and it's from the creator of the original XCOM. Joining me now are IGN UK's Matt Purslow and prolific game industry veteran and designer of Phoenix Point, Julian Gollop, and president of Snapshot Games, David Kay. Gentlemen, welcome to the IGN stage.
Hi.
I'm very excited for this game. I never played the OG XCOM, but I'm a big turn-based tactics fan. Played the more recent XCOM and XCOM 2. Matt, I believe you have played some of Phoenix Point already?
Yeah, and I think kind of like if you're excited about the new XCOM's from Firaxis, I think there's a lot in Phoenix Point that is probably your bag. I think it's a real exciting project. I think probably maybe the best point to start is, can you explain like what Phoenix Point is and how it is actually different from the modern Firaxis sort of games?
So Phoenix Point is set in a future apocalyptic world where we have Lovecraftian-style monsters, and the interesting thing about them is that they will mutate, and there are just literally hundreds of mutations, and they mutate in response to your tactics and what you do. So you get a different experience according to game style, the way you play, or maybe if you play again, you'll get a different set of mutations. The other key difference, probably in the tactical side of the game, is that we have like a realistic ballistic system. It's no longer based on just an abstract dice roll. It's very much what you see is what you get in terms of, you know, the actual environment, the destruction, the cover system. And we also give the player a first-person view where you can zoom in and you can actually target individual body parts. And because the aliens are constantly mutating, sometimes you'll get some very interesting combinations of aliens, and you have to think about, you know, do I want to disable this arm to disable the shield, or do I want to disable his head, which stops him spitting acid, and so on like that. So these are sort of key differences on the tactical side. On the strategic level, there is also a whole new layer which goes into more sort of exploration, gathering resources, encountering other human factions, and getting technology and equipment and resources from them.
You say factions.
Yes.
From what I understand, there are some pretty weird people in the world of Phoenix Point. Just wondering, could you explain sort of like some of the weirdest things that players are going to encounter?
So probably the weirdest one is the Disciples of Anno. So this is like a sort of Lovecraftian-style cult who worship an alien god. But in actual practice, they have acquired a technology that allows them to use the alien mutation system. So they mutate their own followers and soldiers. And from the player's point of view, you can actually either steal this technology or you can acquire it from them, and you can mutate your own soldiers. They're definitely the weirdest. The other two factions, so we have New Jericho, which is much more a militaristic one, so any players who are into big booms and flamethrowers and vehicles running around, because we've got vehicles in the game as well, they're the faction for you. Finally, we've got Synedrian. These guys are much more technically sophisticated, and they have infiltrators and stealth tech, and various other high technology weapons, you know, laser turrets and so on.
You say that there's vehicles in the game. That's obviously something that we don't get in an XCOM game. So how do vehicles change the way that we can approach these missions?
So you can choose to deploy a vehicle in battle, but obviously it takes up space in your aircraft, so you can't take so many soldiers. They do have armaments. They also act as troop carriers, so if you want to get safely from one place to another part of the mission, this is the thing that you can use them for. Some of the vehicles have ram abilities. They can destroy the environment, because we've got a fully destructible environment in the game, which can allow you to basically escape or destroy aliens' cover and so on. So they're quite versatile.
You say that kind of like there's obviously all of these different mutations, but from what I've seen, like monsters, it's not just a case of they're human size. Like some of these things are like the size of buildings.
Correct, yes. So we have, these are like giant mutated battleships. They have like multiple weapon systems, multiple defense systems, different ways of attacking, capturing you. You know, got flame, acid, goo, all these different damage types. So yeah, the monsters are actually persistent characters in the game. If you encounter one in a battle and it manages to escape, you can actually chase it down to its lair, find it again, and ultimately dispatch it.
they've almost got like a sort of sea creature vibe.
Yes.
Is there like a fiction as to why they look like that?
Yes, so the Pandora virus, which is the virus that mutates, was originally uncovered in permafrost and infected the oceans, first of all. So all of the sea creatures have become mutated. And at a certain point, this mist creeps onto the land and it starts to abduct human beings, and it then starts to combine humans with other sort of sea creatures, and you get these very strange mutations that come out of the sea.
So as this virus infects the world, can we expect to see kind of more land-based creatures sort of being folded into the enemy designs?
Yes, there will be. However, I can't tell you too much about those because that's going to come down with our sort of extra content down the line.
Okay.
Add on to the game.
So the title Phoenix Point actually refers to, is it your home base?
So Phoenix Point is your initial base.
Gotcha.
And it's obviously named after the Phoenix Project, which is the secretive sort of internationally funded organization which kind of gets shut down before the game starts, and you have to sort of rebuild it, starting off with this just one base.
So in between battles, is there sort of a base building mechanic?
Yes, there is, very much so. Again, it goes a little bit back to the original XCOM. You can have multiple bases, and you can put multiple different types of facilities in there. You can add your mutation labs, your research labs, medical bays, aircraft hangars, and so on. You can specialize your bases, but the main thing that you need to do is to actually explore initially in the world, so you can actually have bases in different parts of the world, which allows you to respond much more quickly.
Interesting.
And what kind of, obviously on the geoscape level, there tends to be kind of different events that will crop up to challenge players. What kind of things can we expect the Pandora virus to throw at us?
That's a very good question. The aliens are actually building stuff. So you have this mist which is creeping in from the sea. And as this mist creeps in, you find that the aliens are actually starting to build these different types of structures around. And these structures are actually the things which are generating the mutations. And each alien base, if you like, has its own specific mutation set. And it's basically terrorizing all of the nearby human settlements and human havens. And one of the initial things you've got to do is defend those human settlements against alien attack. Once you've done that, you can actually locate those alien bases and try to basically neutralize them, take them down.
In terms of kind of like what they're doing on the land, I vaguely remember reading something like you can land ships on the back of giant walking aliens or something like that?
Yes, this is, again, I have to say, this is something which is coming down the line with our extra content. So we have the behemoths, which we have revealed, and they are basically giant walking aliens, yes.
Confirmed.
And then so in terms of like where we can play Phoenix Point, it's on PC on Epic Store at the moment, but it's coming to other platforms, right?
Yeah, so David can fill you on there.
Yep,
Details.
So September 3rd it's going to release. You'll be able to find it in the Epic Store and also on Xbox Game Pass for PC. And then it's going to come to consoles pretty shortly after that.
Fantastic. And when you say consoles, bit more than Xbox, or?
We've only announced the Xbox version so far.
Exciting.
Would you like to bring Phoenix Point to Nintendo Switch?
We would love to. I think it's quite a challenging game to bring to that platform, but obviously tactics games have such a great history on Nintendo handhelds that we'd love to do it if we can find a way to do it.
Did you play the original XCOM back in the day?
Yes, it was actually one of my favorite games growing up.
Yeah.
Sorry to make Julian feel old, but so it's a bit of a dream come true to now be working with Julian on kind of bringing it back.
Yeah.
And then has anybody from the new XCOM team seen your game? Because obviously this is like the next evolution, right?
Yeah. So Jake Solomon actually, Jake Solomon has been a supporter of the project. He's the creative lead of.
We've talked with him. I've talked with him about what we're doing, and it's kind of.
And there was also a very. I had a moment where I was giving a demo of the game at GDC a year or two ago, and I'm sort of helping somebody through it, and I noticed these 2 or 3 guys that kind of come up and watching very intently, and I sort of looked at their badges, and they were all Firaxis. So I had a slight moment of panic. But they've been all great. You know, I think we all love this. This has really become a genre at this point, and I think we all want to see it grow in popularity and get more fans. So I think we're all trying to learn from each other and make the whole genre better.
Yeah, as a fan of turn-based gaming, I'm just glad that people are still making and playing and enjoying these types of games, for sure.
It's interesting to see kind of like the addition of like ballistics. I think is a real interesting addition.
Yes.
Because obviously it's a case of like if one bullet out of the magazine misses, that doesn't necessarily mean like you've gone bust on that round, right?
No, each individual bullet has its own life, its own trajectory, its own target. Whatever it hits, it hits.
And I mean, yeah, so it means you could shoot at somebody, at an alien, and hit well, someone who's nearby, whether that's
friendly fire
friend
is
or
a
foe.
possibility. Yeah, you have to be careful about it.
Right, like all of that sort of is almost kind of like a Rainbow Six-y sort of element being bought into.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we were trying to do with this system is, obviously if you're coming from a background of knowing how to play strategy games, and XCOM very familiar, but the shooting works a lot more actually, as you would expect if you're coming from more of a shooter background. So maybe that will make it a little bit more accessible for those kinds of people too.
And have you been able to invent any sort of like interesting weapons for Phoenix Point?
Oh yeah, so well, we've got a really big selection. So we've got things which you might typically expect, obviously explosive weapons. We've got flamethrowers, which are an interesting part of it. Acid weapons. There's also a virus weapon, and this basically eats away at a character's willpower. And one of the classes in the game is called the Priest class. It's from Disciples of Anu. And with weakened willpower, it can actually sort of take control of an enemy creature or even an enemy soldier. But the virus weapons will weaken your willpower, basically.
And I guess in terms of having those willpowers, is there almost like a slightly more RPG element kind of running between your soldiers?
It's pretty extensive. I mean, we got a lot of character customization. So, I mean, there are 7 main character classes with a big set of abilities related to each of those. You can dual class your characters. You can also mix and match different armor types from different technologies and different factions. You can mutate your soldiers, and you've got all the usual character customizations in, facial, gender, racial, configurations, anything you like. You can name your soldiers. So it's pretty extensive, and we're really happy with that part of the game.
Sounds fascinating.
Well, Phoenix Point is looking very cool. Thank you so much for bringing it by the IGN stage.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
All right, Phoenix Point is coming to PC, Mac, Xbox One in September, and knowing how much our reviews editor, Dan Stapleton, loves XCOM, we are bound to have more coverage on IGN. In the meantime, this nice person standing in the corner will tell us what's next. That nice person is Brian Altano. He has a name.
That's right. Hey, Damon, coming up later on a very special live E3 episode of Game Scoop is a special guest, but you'll have to wait to find out who it is. It's Felicia Day. I'm sorry for making you wait. That's coming up right next in just a little bit, but first we're checking out Greedfall right here on IGN Live at E3 2019. I have a name.